Let's talk about Apple Pay for a business. And the big question is, can you actually use Apple Pay for a business to actually boost your merchant revenue this year? Okay. Let me first give you an overview. If you think about Apple Pay for business, I want you to think about the scalability. I want you to think about the potential. Can you imagine? You have 1.3 to 1.5 billion iPhones in the world right now. That's a lot of that's a lot of devices. Okay, and so Apple actually is pretty strong in the states. I mean, the state they have about 60 to 65% of market share, but in the rest of the world, they're actually getting traction too. Okay, like around 35 to 40%. So that really creates a lot of potential for your business if you're a merchant in terms of accepting revenue. Okay, so if you think about Apple Pay, I want you to think about a mobile payment and digital wallet service by Apple that allows people to make payments using their Apple devices, including iPhones, iPads, Apple Watches, and Macs. So that's not just the iPhone. People, a lot of merchants know about iPhones, but hey, listen, you have other Apple devices that you can use, even the wearables. Okay, so Apple Pay is actually powered by a near-field communication NFC technology to enable secure, contactless payments at point-of-sale terminals in physical stores. Actually, not just in physical stores. If you have a flea market, or if you have a festival, if you have anything in the open air, you can still use Apple Pay for Business. Okay, so Apple Pay for Business also supports online and in-app purchases, providing a seamless and secure payment experience by utilizing Face ID, Touch ID, or a passcode for authentication. So you have a lot of ways to sort of instill an extra layer of credibility and accountability, either through bio, so things like fingerprint, your retina, all that kind of stuff, or through technology, so it can be multi-factor authentication (MFA) or two-factor authentication (2FA). So that's really good from a flexibility, the kind of certainty that you want to have in your payment process. So that's really good. So if you think about Apple Pay for a business, let me explain to you how it works for merchants, such as you and me, and how it works for consumers. Okay. So on the merchant side, things are pretty straightforward. Things are pretty streamlined because Apple Pay works via your point of sale and payment terminal. So if you have a POS system, that's fine. If not, you can just use the app too. So to accept contactless payments from Apple devices, you need compatible POS equipment with NFC technology. That's the keyword here, NFC technology. Okay, if you don't have NFC technology, it will be impossible for you to accept Apple Pay. So that, like I said a little earlier, Apple Pay is powered by NFC technology. So during the transaction, Apple Pay generates a unique device account number and a dynamic security code for each transaction, ensuring that actual card details are never shared with merchants or transmitted during the payment process. Okay, so that's really good because it gives Apple users some kind of confidence, that some kind of trust that their data is not going to be shared. So that's how Apple Pay works for merchants. What about the way it works for consumers? Well, many consumers are fans of Apple Pay because it provides a convenient and secure way to make payments. So users start by adding their credit or debit card information to the wallet app on their Apple device. Then when making a purchase, they can simply hold their device near an NFC-enabled terminal and authenticate the transaction, again, using Face ID, Touch ID, or a passcode. So the passcode is the tech side of things, and Face ID or Touch ID, that's the biological side of things. So you can see that you're really sure that the person initiating the transaction is indeed the person who is supposed to initiate this transaction in the first place. So this is really good. So what's the value added here? If you think about Apple Pay for business, you do have lots of benefits. Okay, for example, you have increased security and fraud protection. This is kind of cool. You have faster checkout process, and you also have enhanced customer experience. So let me first talk about the security and fraud protection aspect of things. So accepting Apple Pay enhances security and fraud protection because Apple Pay uses a unique device account number, a DAN, a DAN, and a dynamic security code for every transaction. So actual card details are never shared with merchants or transmitted during the payment process. That's what I just said a few minutes ago, right? So the data, the card details are never, ever shared with merchants or even transmitted during the payment process. And since payments are authenticated using biometric data, Face ID or Touch ID or a secure passcode, it's extremely difficult for unauthorized users to complete transactions. So this advanced level of security helps to reduce the risk of fraud and chargebacks for your business. You also have a faster checkout process. So if you are tired of long lines or cumbersome checkout, Apple Pay actually streamlines the checkout process for you. All it requires is for the shopper to hover their device over your terminal. This is often faster than taking their credit card out of their wallet and then inserting it or swiping it to pay. Okay. So with a simple tap of their Apple device against an NFC enabled terminal, payments are actually processed in seconds. This speed reduces wait times, especially during peak hours. Okay. So faster checkouts also mean that your staff can serve more customers in less time, potentially increasing sales and reducing actually congestion at the point of purchase. You also have enhanced customer experience. So basically, if you think about the benefits I just told you a little earlier, a faster checkout process, or even increased security and fraud protection, those can also enhance the customer experience because you are giving customers more payment flexibility also, which can lead to increased customer loyalty and satisfaction. Additionally, the touchless nature of Apple Pay transactions is especially appealing in today's health conscious environment. Since the pandemic, a lot of merchants are really aware of the whole like the hygiene aspect of things. Okay, so this is kind of cool because you don't have to go through touch heavy methods like cash and card payments. Now let's talk about cost here. How much does Apple Pay cost? That's a big question. If you're a merchant, if you're a small business owner, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to accept Apple Pay at your shop, how much will it cost you? Well, there is good news because guess what? Apple Pay is free for customers in that there is no extra charge when they add a credit card to their device and use it to pay, right? Because the whole thing was made to ensure that customers are incentivized to use their cards to use their phone. Of course, customers are still subject to the terms and conditions of their credit cards, which may include interest, annual fees, etc. But that's beyond the scope of Apple Pay, right? Similarly, there is no extra charge when accepting Apple Pay in your store, and the fees you will pay will depend on the rates set up by your payment processor. Okay, so you can see that from a flexibility point of view, Apple Pay is a win for customers, win for entrepreneurs and merchants like you and me, and so you have a solution that's very high in terms of security too. Okay, now the only thing I can say is that when it comes to you just have to look at the ancillary fees that come with you having an NFC device or you having NFC technology, okay, and how much you have to pay to maintain that technology at your facility, at your store, at your office, all that kind of stuff, okay. But from Apple, there is no charge. There is no extra charge to use the technology. It was made that way to incentivize people to use the Apple technology. So that's really good. So let me talk to you about setup here. How do you set up Apple Pay for your brick and mortar business? And then I'll explain to you how to set up Apple Pay for your e-commerce store. Okay. So when you think about your brick and mortar store, the first thing you want to do is to actually have the right equipment. You got to have the right equipment. I think I said to you a little earlier that it's really important. Okay, so you want to equip your business with a POS and payments terminal compatible with Apple Pay. This means what? It means having an NFC enabled payment terminal, right? NFC technology. And this terminal allows for contactless transactions. So if your current POS system does not support NFC tech, you may need to upgrade to a compatible terminal. The reason is that again, Apple Pay needs that technology. Okay, and so if you want your customers, if you want your customers to use their phone to make payments to you, you got to really have that. So if you encounter problems, you want to contact your POS or merchant services provider to verify your equipment's compatibility. You should also ensure that your POS software is up to date to support Apple Pay. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you need to set up your payment terminals. Okay, so if you already have the right equipment, then things can go even faster. So you want to see to it that everything is set up correctly. This will vary depending on your POS, payments, and hardware provider. So you want to contact your vendors to make sure that your equipment is implemented properly. Okay. So the critical thing to remember is that your payment equipment should be able to talk to your POS system seamlessly and securely, right? Because otherwise you will not be able to transmit data like credit card data or debit card data from your system to from customers to your system. So you got to have this sort of integration. And next you just accept payments. So when everything is set up, you can start accepting payments. When ringing up sales, simply have your customers hover their Apple device over the terminal to pay. It's really straightforward. So how do you set up Apple Pay for e-commerce? It's very easy also. Okay. So accepting Apple Pay on your e-commerce site may take a bit more work, but you can do it if you have the right expertise on staff or you hire that expertise. Because you as a merchant, you are required to follow Apple's developer guidelines, and the specific steps you'll take actually may vary depending on your e-commerce platform and or a payment processor. But generally, you need to do the following. I'm going to put this on the screen. The first thing is that you need to make sure that you meet all the requirements. Let me explain. Having the Apple Pay button on your site comes with very specific requirements, including the fact that you must use a provider that supports Apple Pay. So if you have Shopify, for instance, it has to support Apple Pay. Or if you use BigCommerce or WooCommerce or whatever you have, okay, that's number one. Your store domain must have SSL activated. You cannot use Apple Pay if you don't have the padlock. You got to have TLS or SSL. It has to be activated. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do whatever you want. And your store must adhere to Apple's acceptable use guidelines. And Apple is constantly editing their acceptable use guidelines. So just make sure that you're familiarized, like you are familiar with the latest guidelines. So after making sure you meet all the requirements, you need to create an Apple developer account. So if you don't already have one, you'll need to create an Apple developer account and visit the Apple developer website. You want to sign up and enroll in the Apple developer program. This is necessary to access the resources and tools required to enable Apple Pay, including creating a merchant ID, taking test transactions, etc. Okay, so this is important. Finally, you need to configure Apple Pay in your e-commerce platform. So go to the settings or payment method section of your e-commerce platform and enable Apple Pay. You will need to enter the merchant ID you created and provide any other required details. Your platform's documentation should guide you through this process step by step. And so once you complete all the earlier steps, you should be ready to accept Apple Pay on your website. So this is kind of cool. So the thing is that once Apple Pay is enabled for your business, you need to really let your customer know. Okay, you need to let customers know. Otherwise, your customers might not really like be aware that they could pay through Apple with your website through your website. Apple Pay is pretty ubiquitous these days, so you will likely won't encounter many people unfamiliar with it. That said, it never hurts to be proactive in communicating to people that you accept Apple Pay, and you can do this through a clear in-store signage and stickers on or near your payment terminals. And if you have Apple Pay set up online, then consider adding the Apple Pay logo to your list of accepted payment methods. Okay, so this is kind of cool, and Apple provides great info on its marketing guidelines page, including downloadable resources. You also need to train your team. So ensure that your staff is well versed in Apple Pay because, see, the whole thing is that you don't want customers to come to your store and your staff has no idea how to really deal with them. So teach your staff members, for instance, how to troubleshoot your devices in the event of technical issues. It also helps to coach them on talking points, especially when it comes to explaining Apple Pay to customers. And the last thing you want to do is to also stay updated. So if you are using Apple Pay, you want to stay updated and regularly check for updates from Apple regarding Apple Pay enhancements and new capabilities. Okay, it's all about staying updated, and also knowing what works and what doesn't work. And also, you want to ensure that your POS system and payment software are always up to date to maintain compatibility and security, especially from a flexibility point of view. So remember that staying informed helps you leverage Apple Pay's full potential and address any issues promptly. So this is kind of cool. So overall, incorporating Apple Pay into your business can enhance security, streamline the checkout process, and improve customer satisfaction, right? Especially when it comes to adding more revenue to your bottom line. So if you haven't done so yet, you can get up and running by ensuring that you have the right equipment and configuring your store to accept Apple Pay. And if you're setting it up online, make sure that you meet all of Apple's requirements and follow the procedures on your e-commerce platform. So, in conclusion to this conversation, I spoke to you about Apple Pay for a business. I gave you the overview, the value added, the cost, the setup, and now the conclusion. Thank you so much. God bless you. I will see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.